Good evening. I am Susanna Whitman. And although I have 3 children, my family of origin was very small. I'm an only child, and my mother was an only child. So I have no siblings, and I have no first cousins on my mother's side of the family. So the first cousins on my father's side of the family really mattered to me. And I had only one girl first cousin that was anywhere near my age when I was growing up, Jean. But when Jean was 14 and I was 16, her mom took her away to a cult for several decades. They weren't allowed to contact the family, and I lost the person who was the closest thing to a sister that I had. That was hard. It was a hard loss. Now, about a little over 10 years ago, I was in Minneapolis at the Unitarian Universalist Association annual meeting, and I was trying to recycle and compost what was left of my lunch. And it was just this situation of a whole bunch of bins and a long description, and I just couldn't figure out what I was supposed to do because, Unitarian Universalists. So, woman came over to me and said, "Can I help you?" And I said, "Yes." So she helped me dispose of the remains of my lunch, and I noticed that she had a name tag on that said Zanna, Z-A-N-N-A. And I thought, I wonder if that's her real name or if that's a nickname. And then she noticed my name tag, and she said, "Oh, you're Susanna." She said, "I'm Susanna too. It's just Zanna's a nickname." And we started talking about how unusual a name Susanna is. Because how many Susannas have you ever met? Probably not a lot if you live in this country. In any case, so by the time I was an adult, I think I'd only met about 3 Susannas other than myself in my life. So we're talking about this, and she says, "Oh my goodness, what am I saying? I just met this other woman over here, and she's also named Susanna." So hang on a second. This is like almost doubling the number of Susannas I've ever met, maybe, at this moment. And Susanna comes over, and just kind of stunned, and we're just all sort of talking at the same time as if we're old friends, and we just met. We aren't old friends, and we're just all named Susanna. We're just 3 Unitarian Universalist Susannas. And we got to get a picture. So all the phones come out, the husbands come over, they take the phones, they're taking our pictures. We're exchanging contact information so that hopefully we can send each other the photographs. And then one of the husbands says, "Hey, Suze, don't you have Whitmans in your family?" Whitman is my last name. And she says, "Yes, my grandmother was a Whitman." And I said, "Oh, wow, oh, okay." So she gets out a paper napkin and a pen, and she starts sketching a family tree. And we got talking about the different names in the tree, and it turns out that her grandmother that she mentioned and my grandfather were sister and brother. So our fathers were first cousins, and Susanna, the second Susanna, is my second cousin. Not even distant. So the whole thing about 3 Susannas is just like, what was that? We're related closely. And she starts telling me things about the family that I didn't know. Like our great-grandfather was a Unitarian, and great-grandmother was a Universalist. And later I reflected and thought, well, hey, maybe that's how we ended up at the same conference and met each other, because maybe that religion was just handed down all those generations. So that's how we came to meet. But also puzzled about the fact that we hadn't met before. But you see, our fathers died when we were 18. And our families, although my family was small, the cousin group on the dad's side was not. And I think our little spheres just kind of kept going and didn't reach across to the rest of the family, basically. And also, why are we both named Susanna? I'm not sure, but there was a Susanna Whitman in our family tree like a couple hundred years ago, so that's possible. In any case, she told me she's got a sister who lives in Massachusetts, and when I get back home, I've got to look her up, and I've gotten to know their families. And this was a really wonderful family find. My family found, cousins found, after losing my wonderful cousin when I was a teenager. Thank you.